Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being here. My name's Julia Arena. I'm a senior here at Fitchburg State and one of our presidential ambassadors. I'm joined by my fellow ambassadors, Sophia, Aiden, and Gabrielle. Hi, everybody. So we'll begin momentarily. Welcome to tonight's Wrestling with Racism, facilitated by members of the Montachusett MLK Coalition, who have been wrestling with racism in the Montachusett area for over 25 years. Tonight we will talk about some sensitive subjects, which may stir up personal and emotional reactions for some audience members. We assure you that this is a safe space to discuss racism, and each of you has a part in creating this safe discussion space. So please, practice active listening and empathy during the coming conversation. Trust that everyone here has good intentions and acknowledge the impact of the statements that you make. Remember that your impact is more important than your intentions, and apologize if need to. So, let's be open to feedback and new perspectives, and allow yourself to be uncomfortable. Please be advised that if anyone is disrespectful, the facilitators will ask them to leave the room. Before we begin, please turn off cell phones and other electronic devices. Now, let's welcome tonight's facilitators, Linda and Eric. Linda Mason is the president of the Montachusett MLK Coalition. She has been with the coalition for about 25 years. She's a retired high school English teacher. Born and raised in Cameroon, Central Africa, Eric Bunwe came to the United States in 2016 after completing graduate studies in biomedical sciences in 2013. Eric bought a home in Fitchburg in 2020. Since being in the United States, he has worked in the science research at the University of Pennsylvania on diabetes and human genetics related projects, and now works in the medical device industry in Boston. In addition to his volunteer work with the Montachusett MLK Coalition, Eric currently serves on the Fitchburg Public Library Board of Trustees.
Thank you. First, just to begin, it's my really great pleasure to be here to talk about barriers to higher education on this topic that I would say is very dear to my heart. I believe that I have had second chances to life and to my career because of the power of higher education. Higher education empowers you to have an ever-present curiosity that never leaves you, and an unimaginable resilience. So when you keep or learn how to keep asking the right questions, then someone somewhere someday will be able to take you to where you belong. In order to stimulate the discussion this evening, we will have a short video and then proceed from there. Thank you.
What is Black History Month? It's a time, of course, to highlight Black success. And while we have made major progress towards equity and education, there is still a lot of work to be done. We are being joined by Dr. Tina Noe-Bartel, the Executive Director of the San Diego and Imperial Center of Excellence. Thanks for coming in, Doc. Appreciate it.
Hi, again.
Let's talk a little bit about this study and what it reveals. What are some of the key takeaways that you want to share with our viewers here?
Yeah, before we get started on that, so our center serves all 10 community colleges in the region.
Okay.
And we use our research to advocate on behalf of employers and students' needs so that the colleges can better serve the students. And so for this particular study, we conducted a study on 200 former and current Black and African American students to figure out what their barriers to education and workforce or career was. The reason for the study was that when we looked at the data, in any data set that you look at, Black and African American students, or the population in general, are more disproportionately impacted than any other racial and ethnic group. So for example, when you look at the census data, in our county, Black and African Americans have the highest poverty rates out of any other group.
Right.
And then when we look at their education, we found that 1 out of 5 of them have a high school diploma or less as a higher education compared to 3% of the white population.
Okay.
So for this study, we wanted to know why. Why are the numbers the way that they are, and what are the barriers that our students face? So the findings were that 1, they experience extreme financial challenges. Our students had 25% of them spent 50% or more of their income on housing.
Oh, okay.
1 out of 4 spent 50%.
That's a big problem in San Diego County,
right,
for sure.
And that's compared to, what, 33% of our income that we spent on housing on the average?
Yeah.
So that was one, huge financial difficulties. The other one was that they had major caregiving challenges. Not only did they care for their children, but they also had adult dependents. And when the
Gotcha.
COVID-19 pandemic happened, that extremely affected that community and other caregivers throughout the county.
We have some of those points she's making on the screen here.
Oh, yeah. And then as a result of that, right, they also experienced microaggressions in the classroom and at work. And so they
Can you
had,
explain what that is, microaggressions?
Yeah, absolutely. So microaggressions were some maybe little snide remarks here and there about communities or a group of different individuals, and that can cause somebody to react either negatively or positively,
So
depending
racism
on it.
potentially?
Yes.
Okay.
Some discriminatory remarks may be intentionally, unintentionally said in a particular environment,
Okay.
but those microaggressions can cause you to feel unwelcomed or maybe not part of whatever work environment or classroom environment that you're in.
Okay, then you see on there fatigue and mental health, and as well as a lack of guidance. Only about 40 seconds left, but what are these findings? What are you going to do with these findings? What can be done about this?
Yeah, so we've been going around campaigning on the challenges that our students face. You know, you typically think of students as those that just go and do education, but then you realize that a lot of our students have so many other challenges in their life that make them leave education before they can come back. That's why you see such low levels of educational attainment in this community. So our instructors are now changing the way that they teach our students. They are being more compassionate and caring about those life challenges, and we're trying to change our system so that they can come and go whatever challenges they experience. And we encourage employers in the region to do the same.
Is there a website where people can learn more about the study? Or?
Yes, we have a website for the study, but we also have a regional website that you can work with all of the colleges in San Diego and Imperial. That website is called myworkforceconnection.org. And that's the group that you want to connect if you ever want to partner with any of the community colleges. There's 10 of them in our region, in San Diego and Imperial.
All right, thanks for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
And thanks everyone again for coming. Having listened to that video, I believe that there are people here in the room who may be like myself, who have lived some of these experiences and would want to share and be open about it, because when you talk about it, you help yourself, and you are also more helping those who might be on the same path that you traveled. And I have been brave, and that is one reason I say higher education. Talking about barriers to higher education, I'm more than brave and courageous to talk about these barriers, such that anyone who desires access to higher education should be able to have access to higher education. And they have talked on a couple of points on that video. I don't know what stands out for you, but if we do start with financial barrier, which is one of the main drivers behind inequality in access to higher education in the African American community, you want to laud the effort that I have seen from Fitchburg State University through the direct admissions program. This is something really new to me, and if I look at, I wouldn't have had access to education. It would have been different maybe at some point if some of these resources were made available. And I hope that this is something the Fitchburg community in particular would make sure that they take advantage of it and have their kids enroll in Fitchburg State. If I want to talk about how financially that has affected me individually, I think most of my undergrad was funded through academic award. I had excellence awards, and immediately after undergraduate, I had access to graduate school because of a fully funded scholarship. And this, I sometimes think about it, that the scholarship didn't only fund my own education. I, in fact, did use part of my scholarship to assist my siblings and my extended family. So they also benefited from this scholarship. Last weekend, I happened to have been in Boston attending a gala by the National society for black engineers. And one thing I loved about their effort also, they partner with different companies and they raise money to give scholarship to students in STEM fields and college education to make sure that people around Boston. So you had a couple of recipients who were there, and I think these are some of the ways or different resources that sometimes are available. So it's not the African American, it's not only looking through these resources to come to them, but we are working hard also to galvanize resources, to raise funds in order to assist those who want to have access to higher education, to make sure that this disparity gap is being closed. I don't know, for people here in the room, does this resonate with you as it does with me? If you have any experience with that, how you navigated the challenges that you might have had financially to have access to higher education, you might want to share it as well.
Yeah, I can go and share something about that. For me, higher education was very important ever since I found out about it from TV shows and stuff. My parents were like, "Okay, we gotta get you there. We're gonna figure it out." And the biggest barrier was financial. And so something that I did in high school was I was like, okay, one of my main goals is not just to feel like I fit into the place, but also scout out who's going to give me the best deal. Which place is going to give me the most aid. So I applied to 50 plus schools, very dedicated onto that, and tried to, and I went through all the offers, and I was like, okay, this one didn't give me much, so I'm probably not going to go there. Even now that I'm considering graduate school, that's one of the things, the key things that I'm looking at, affordability, and what I can do to reduce the cost of my higher education. It was a lot of searching, crunching numbers, and my parents, I think something else that people in this room can relate to is being a first generation student. My parents had no idea what they were doing. So in my head, I'm like, okay, I gotta not only figure out how to make sure that they're not spending a fortune on my education, but also how to navigate it on my own and fill in these applications and what is the FAFSA, and that certainly I resonate with that feeling of there is a wall in front of me, how do I climb it?
Thank you.
Just going back to the video a little bit, is it surprising to you the data that the video revealed? The video was, let's see, just a couple of years old, 2024, I believe. Dr. Bartel cited a couple of things. The barriers, she said, for Black and African Americans are the highest of any racial or ethnic group. I don't know if that's surprising to you or if you've thought about it. She cites a couple of the barriers, the high poverty rates among Blacks. 1 out of 5 have a high school diploma or less as higher education. So I'm wondering, are you surprised? Is anyone surprised by the findings of this, I don't want to say, research that they've done? She was talking about the financial, because that's one of the key barriers. But then she talked about some other barriers. I know it was a quick, short video. I don't know if you caught some of the other barriers. Families with having child care, sometimes an adult they have to be responsible for, as major caregivers. So, there were other, as well as the financial aspect of it. And then she also mentioned microaggressions. Does anybody catch that? Or I don't know if you were already familiar with microaggressions. And again, I was going to ask the question, have you experienced the microaggression personally? Or have you seen considering microaggression, maybe you haven't experienced it personally, but have you kind of seen or heard that in a classroom from an educator or other person? Is anyone familiar with it on a more personal level, microaggression?
Yeah, I can speak on that as well,
Okay.
and I'll share it to the room. But for me, I think it's been navigating other people's culture shock. I guess I'm Afro Latino, so in coming to Fitchburg State, there was certainly a Latin and African community here for me to like get close with, but a lot of my friends are also like not from like those groups of people, and so it's been a lot of the time, at least from my experience, they haven't intended to be like rude, but there's been times where like one of my friends like asked me, "Hey, can I touch your hair?" And I was like, "Hey, man, let's not do that. Here's why that's not okay to like ask me out of nowhere." And it kind of like being that like person that has to like explain that educative like aspect of it because of that position, but it's also kind of exhausting to have to be that person, at least from my experience.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because microaggressions sometimes as well can lead to, as it said, mental health issues, a person not feeling like they fit in, they can feel alienated, and unfortunately or ultimately might cause a person to withdraw from, well, withdraw in general, but maybe withdraw from school if they don't feel it's a comfortable environment. So again, along with the other barriers as well. I was, thinking about it for myself. Well, I'm much older than you, but, I've experienced many over my lifetime, particularly one that people will say that I speak so well. Oh, you speak so well, and again, obviously, I'm an educated person, but they mean for a black person. They don't finish it, but, we speak so well, So I typically will explain, as you do, but like you said, exhausting is a key word, or where am I from? People ask me. I mean, lived here all my life, in this area, but where are you from? Where are you really from? I've gotten that. That I'm not like other black people. Yes, you're different. You're not like other black people. These are some that I've had. Maybe some of them have, you've heard or experienced. Well, when I was teaching, for example, teachers tend to dress more casually now, but, and I don't know that I was dressed any differently than other teachers, but I know a parent came in once when I was after school and said to me, "Oh, is the teaching staff gone home? Everyone in the teaching staff?" And so I looked and they said, "Oh," and I said, "Well, I'm a teacher. I could help." "Oh, you are? Oh, I'm sorry." But again, probably assuming that I was custodial staff, So, things like that. Or another one that maybe some of you might have experienced. Sometimes people, if they're not used to people, of color or black people, they kind of pull, if they have, they kind of pull away. Or they don't want to get too close. They might think you're going to rob them or something. They kind of, you sense that. I know I've gotten in elevators, for example, and some people, have kind of, up straight, like, they think they're going to do something to them to harm them. So, these kinds of things, and they take place not just in education, of course, but in the workplace, they carry over. And as, again, going back to your word, exhausting, they can be. But, it's something that we have to deal with. And, unfortunately, and I guess as you have done, educating is the best way, or trying to educate the person, or at least standing up for yourself, because that's the way I was always taught. Because again, I lived longer than you, so things were, I've been, as I tell people, I've been colored, I've been Negro, I've been, now it's black or African American, but those titles that we had, represent the time, because people will say to me, "Well, which would you rather be called, black or African American?" And I said, either is fine, but just don't call me Negro or black. But the thing is, people don't use that term anymore, for the most part, maybe people that are very old. But when we were Negro or black or colored, we were second class. That's why I don't like that term, because what it represents. So I said, when I was born as a second class citizen when I was born into this world. I lived here, so fortunately things were better for me than in the South. But I wouldn't have been able to ride on the bus in the front seat, or my mother would have had to give up a seat. So I tell people these things just because, sometimes people think that all this stuff is so long ago. And also, given what's going on now, we really have to educate ourselves to be aware of these things, to, try to combat them so that we don't reverse things as is happening as we speak, you know. But so, like I said, I was just wondering if anyone had any experiences with that.
I'm going to say something, Linda. I'm not surprised by the fact that there's financial barriers for higher education to the African American community, because there's no generational wealth. There was redlining where they couldn't buy homes. I mean, that's for the white community, that's the biggest thing that allows people to hand down, their assets, is that they owned a home. A lot of African Americans didn't own a home. You didn't own. You didn't own a home. Your family didn't own a home.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Bernie, because that was actually my next question that I was going to ask. Why do you think there's such a deep disparity that blacks or African Americans are significantly, disproportionately doing, so much less well than white people? And what Bernie just said, the wealth gap that's still with us today, because people don't stop and think of that, or maybe they don't even have the education for it, because I know the schools don't particularly address deeply these this topic, but the wealth gap is absolutely because of the lack of generational wealth. Well, I could say a lot on that. That's a topic in itself, but thank you for bringing that up, Bernie.
And thanks, Linda. Just to follow up, and because also we are fortunate to have a school administrator here with us. So what was driving this study also was looking at the observation that in African Americans there was a higher and low enrollment rate and higher dropout rate. I just wondered, my curiosity is this something one of the administrators maybe, is that what you see? Does this align with what you know?
I'm glad you asked that question, because and it was addressed in the video too. I think one thing that gets overlooked is the obligation of families, particularly if there are healthcare issues, or just caring for an adult in their household, has had a drastic effect on retainment levels, particularly in higher ed. We don't. With the state of Massachusetts probably needs to do a better job of tracking whether graduates, stay through four-year institutions or one institution for 4 years. There is some data on it, but families that are economically disadvantaged and incurring high levels of healthcare costs, that contributes greatly to students not finishing 4 years of college. So I think Fitchburg State's done a wonderful job partnering with the community in providing free tuition for students, and I think that's going to help greatly. So the cost of managing the costs for family obligations and education has always been an issue that I think has been overlooked sometimes. So, but at the high school level, I think our school, I think we do a decent job of, graduating students. But the big conversation that comes up now is, are we preparing our students well enough for higher education and educating them on some of these financial burdens that they're going to face once they enter college? So I think that's something that conversation has come up a little bit more in the last year or so.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That makes a lot of sense, and I would pull that a little bit further by thinking also about in school administration, because it's also known that one of the causes of the disparities is also, or the success outcomes of students is the low number of black faculty. And when students have professors that look like them, the outcomes tend to be better. What efforts are we doing to have a diverse faculty for the students? One of the lines in the study the mention was the lack of guidance, and you do believe that black faculty stand a better chance to mentor Black students and also to support their white colleagues who mentor Black students.
So I think today more so than ever we've had we try to get out and recruit educators that are reflective of our students. I think having mentoring programs for educators has really changed a little bit over the last 20 years or so, and I think just developing an understanding that our students have intellectual gifts that need to be really kind of elevated in the classroom, and we need educators that look like them to really enforce that. And we provide professional development for all of our teachers to lift the kind of the intellectualism that each student brings to our school. But it's probably no secret that the majority of our staff is predominantly white, and so I think that falls in line with some of the generational barriers that have been in place for hundreds of years, and we're trying to remove those barriers, at our school. So it's not easy. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and there's a lot of recruitment that needs to expand as well. But the district in general is that we are finding ways to kind of cast our net, into all the different recruiting resources that we could tap into.
I guess I'd ask Principal Lamy about this financial barrier that's being lifted, where African American students can come to Fitchburg State free of cost. That there really there's room for a partnership where the schools, all the high schools in Fitchburg get involved with Fitchburg State and say, hey, we're gonna bring in students to become teachers that look like our students.
That's it.
That's what's going to happen.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and I think that for us is really one of the great aspects of this partnership is that we can recruit our own to come back and incentivize coming back to Fitchburg to become teachers, and so we're really excited about that. We do have an admissions counselor from Fitchburg State that is at our school part-time, so they're involved with recruiting students, and I think quite frankly, I think it's long overdue. But we're really excited to see how it's going to play out in the coming years.
And this will be the first year that this program is. So it's really this is the start of big things for the high schools in this area and for Fitchburg State.
Yeah. And I think Fitchburg State benefits too, because those students are probably, if they can stay 4 years and the financial burden is lifted a bit, they'll go on to master's programs. They'll get masters in education, hopefully. So it's really there's so many
the community, because they're going to stay.
They're going to stay here, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I think, talking about getting more teachers of color, black teachers, whatever, is critical, because what is the saying, you can't be what you don't see. And I think it really is absolutely critical to do that. However, overnight it can't be done. So right now, the program starting in the fall was in place are the teachers, the staff who is here. Maybe one or two might be hired or whatever, as typical. But for the most part, it's going to be white teachers. So really, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, necessarily. What I mean by that is we don't have to wait until we can get more teachers, black teachers, teachers of color, to make some changes. And I know one of the things I always look at when they're talking about these studies and findings and things is the response. What's the outcome? What's being done about that? And I know in this video we watched, the short video, Dr. Bartel cited that the instructors that are there now are changing some of the ways that they teach, trying to be more compassionate and to care about the challenges of the students. And those kinds of things, unfortunately, difficult to measure. But, again, that can happen. That's something that can happen now. It doesn't have to wait until, the more teachers are, the black teachers or teachers of color are hired. Also, the efforts being made to change the system so that students can maybe come and go. It said this was one of the things that they cited, come and go with whatever life challenges they experience, because that was one of the things that was pointed out as students, because again of the families and the struggles. And I watched so many videos, I don't recall if it was in this video I watched, but I know several students, the concern along with the financial was, I really feel guilty sometime going to school, my family's struggling and they don't have the money, and I really feel that I have to make the best of this. Or in some cases, sometimes students feel like they have to drop out to work to help the families. So all of those things can be addressed at least now. I thought that was very important, because like I said, I always look for the response now. What can be done now with this data? Because they're always doing studies. So I was also wondering too, if any of you had any other ideas of changes that could happen now, to make things better, especially with the incoming students in the fall. They're going to have the opportunity to, attend tuition free, because retention is a huge thing. And, to be honest, I taught in Fitchburg, and, I was there for 25 years or so, and I know I was there again that long, but there were black teachers that came through. But I'll tell you, I don't know how much they said to others, but the number one reason that they left was because they didn't feel comfortable. They said, I just really didn't feel comfortable in the system. And it was in part because there weren't other people there that looked like them, but just there's a feeling that, I think when a person is comfortable, obviously white people are always, wherever I go, the majority wherever I am, so they can feel comfortable. But when I go, and I grew up here, so it's a little different for me. But when I go in, though, I'm sometimes aware, and sometimes depending on the person's experience or whatever, eyes are looking at me like, are you, again, my progress, are you in the right place? Is this what you want? And so there are subtleties that you experience, and those kind of things, really are impactful and important to think about and to address. So again, that's as important and significant right now to think about those things and addressing them as it is to hopefully eventually have more of a staff that reflects the students. Well,
I'm glad you said it, because on a personal level, obviously, I grew up in Fitchburg. I went to Fitchburg Public Schools, and it's hard to explain Fitchburg's history, if you will, with race relations, and it's I think Fitchburg has a complicated past. There are patterns of racism that existed, but I think what Fitchburg can be summed up as there's been a long pattern of sort of some microaggression type behavior, and certainly in the schools that's been the case. So I think having an understanding of how that behavior impacts not just staff, but the whole community, families, students, and what that looks like, and training our staff members to say, hey, listen, although that comment is seemingly you think is harmless, it's seen differently. So having those open conversations are important. And I think understanding the local history too, and understanding that some of those comments might be accepted, in certain social circles, particularly in a city that's made up like this, it's really that small small city, large town dynamic. Those patterns are tough to break, and that's why having these conversations are so important.
All right.
Thank you. And just to add to that voice also, I think when DEI was put in place, which unfortunately is being eroded, in some places it was meant to help some of this situation we are talking about, the university community, so that everybody can have a sense, feel the belonging, or if you are facing some of the microaggressions that we are talking about, then you can have support within the university community. You can know where to go to, because that is very important. While we are talking here, try to shine a light on what the issues are, we also want to make suggestions. One concept I want to mention tonight is that of ethical blindness. The higher education is a very high pressure environment, and students can be overwhelmed with the classes they're taking. Staff they're doing teaching, they have to do research, they have to do publications, and some of this pressure, sometimes we have to watch the decisions that we make, because sometimes they can influence our moral compass. And secondly, maybe before I pass over to Linda, in line with seeking for help when you need it in the university environment, seeking counseling, these resources that are available is also important. One thing historically is seen in Black communities is sometimes they have a high pain tolerance, but then pain or head tolerance. But when this goes beyond a certain point, it can reach a break point and you would be overstretched. So they should be at a point where you see, okay, don't be ashamed, because microaggression is also linked to mental health, as we are talking about, and these are some of the contributions that both contribute to the barrier. So you want to seek help, and you know where this help is, because one thing is having those resources on campus, and for students or the university community taking advantage of these resources.
I wanted to look at this, initiative a little bit, examine it a little bit more closely. I actually got most of my information out of the Sentinel and Enterprise. It had an article on the initiative, so that's where most of my information was gleaned. I hope it's accurate, but anyway, or somewhat accurate. But anyway, in reading that article, it starts out by the president referencing equity, saying that this was, her words, what did she say? This is equity in action. So equity is a significant and important word here. So I wanted to make sure that we're kind of on the same page with understanding equity versus equality. Again, from my experience, it might seem like a word that's kind of innocuous, but I've had, when I was working, some colleagues that kind of had, some feelings about equity, like, well, you're doing something more for somebody else, and why, some grumbling. So I kind of want to understand and make sure that we're on the same page with understanding the difference between equity and equality, because people, of course, the word equality is, been there. But what's the difference between equity and equality? Anyone?
Yeah, I can say a piece on that. Equity, as I believe, is let's say there's like one person that needs a little bit more help than the other. That's equity. Like when there is in particular when there's a system that it makes it harder for one person to get the same opportunities as another person. Equity is a solution to that system because it allows for the playing field to be evened out, whereas equality is treating everybody the same despite there being already an inequality at the root of how those different groups of people are treated.
Right. That's precisely right. You really explained that very well. But I think that some people have the difficulty with the first part when you said it's helping someone a little bit more. People stop at that. Why should someone else get more? Everybody should get the same. Why should I have the advantage to typically a person of color? Why should I do more for them? And then it stops there, because like I said, I had colleagues that kind of had a problem. I'm not doing anything more for anybody. They're all going to get the same. And they didn't take into consideration the second part, which is someone who obviously historically has been disenfranchised, who hasn't had the same opportunities, the rest of that piece, which is very critical, right? Because as we know, if somebody is starting at a deficit and they're not even up to the starting point, they can't compete fairly, right? Or, equality can't happen. So that's critical to make sure we understand that. So anyway, as I said, the first part of this article, when I was reading it, the president referred to the initiative as equity in action. So my question was, who benefits from this and how so? Who do you see as benefiting from this? And I'm asking this for a specific question. I mean, it could be an obvious answer to it, but who benefits from it? The equity in action, as she's referencing here. Who benefits from it? I mean, I guess, like I said, the obvious answer would be, well, the students that are, coming in and getting the free tuition and everything, and the ones that typically wouldn't be able to afford college otherwise, or, but is it a one-sided thing? Is it only the students that are able to be the beneficiaries to be able to take advantage of this? Are they the only ones that benefit from it? From getting an education, being able to, obviously better themselves?
I think this knowledge, Julia, maybe you do want to comment?
I think I have a thought on that.
Okay, sure.
It's not a complete thought yet, but I'm going to work on it as I go. I would argue that not only the person who receive some kind of help with the equity benefits, but also the community in general as a whole would benefit. So in this case, the community being Fitchburg State, Fitchburg as a city as a whole, especially the families of people who are benefiting. Not only we're giving help to people who need it, but we're also allowing diverse perspectives into your community. Right. And so I see it at Fitchburg State, where we have this diverse community where we have all kinds of clubs bringing diverse cultures and perspectives, and I, for one, love exploring those different events and getting it. It just kind of is that like mental enrichment and cultural enrichment that this community, I feel like, should be very proud of. Mm-hmm. And by providing that equity like we've been talking about, we're just allowing that to flourish even more so.
Okay, thank you. I guess I wanted to add, too, when I was asking the question, not only who, but also how so. And you just gave us both reasons. Because I was going to say, how do other groups, other people benefit from this? How do we benefit as a community, as a society? Eric told his personal story, about his ability to be able to go to school. Obviously, he's very, brilliant-minded with the sciences and all of that. But if the financial piece was in the way, how many people, the community, who loses out on that when somebody is, not given the same opportunity? So everyone benefits,
Absolutely.
Obviously, right? But
Society
I think
benefits. That's a great point. I think so I'm a first-generation college student, so I myself benefit from a lot of financial aid and a lot of help on that front. But I think especially just the opportunity to have more peers and with more diverse perspectives, I feel like it just brings even more. Just it's a bigger pool, so naturally we have more ideas and everything. I feel like it allows us to flourish as a community.
Right. It's the learning that takes place, right?
Absolutely.
And I'd like to add on to
please.
that as well. Because I think I know that higher education is like primarily education, but a piece of that education puzzle is the fact that you get so many different perspectives. The main reason why I think a lot of people should get higher education is not just for the degree, but also the experiences and the people that you meet really change and expand your worldview. There's so many different kinds of people that I've met here at Fitchburg State University that I probably would have never met just if I had like stayed home or like didn't have the opportunity to be here. So more people having that opportunity naturally makes that bigger and better and gets people more of that chance to be like, hey, I didn't know this was a thing before, and now I do, and now I'm gonna be more respectful. Or hey, this is really cool, and I want to take part in this and appreciate this. It's really beautiful.
Yes, thank you.
I just want to add one
Sure.
comment to that too. I need the mic because my voice is really quiet. That will never make the video. I just wanted to add, in addition to that, it when other people have the experiences with people that are not of their race or their community, they can then take that back home to their own families and break the cycle of what perhaps they were taught by their families as we're all the same, and it hopefully it will it'll break that cycle so that it doesn't perpetuate with that family anymore, or perhaps maybe at least with this one person in the family, that going forward there'll be a lot more respect for others from the community. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah. So again, who benefits? We all do. Everyone does. And it enriches us. I like what you just said, because basically that's enriching us as individuals and enriching our families, whoever we interact with. So that's so critical. And again, I think the reason I bring that up is, again, from my own experiences, sometimes I have heard people think that it's just one-sided. Like when I said who's benefiting from this, obviously students being able to, go to school and all. And if we keep that just narrow idea or mind, then we tend to feel like something is being taken away from us, which is what I hear a lot of times. People feel like, well, what's, oh, wait a minute, so they're taking something away from me. I'm going to have to pay for this, and, what am I getting out of it? I mean, this is just kind of the way people are, human nature. People say, well, I'm not getting anything out of it. Why should I care? Or what should, so again, I think breaking the cycle, that's what it does. It helps in so many ways. It helps all of us, but it helps all of us in so many ways. And you've all cited those ways. So I think that's critical to think about, because oftentimes when people first hear, this initiative that's going to take place or anything else, they think, well, who's benefiting from this now? Oh, well, I'm not getting anything out of it. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. If they're open to it. I mean, a person has to be open to it, but absolutely. So.
Just to think that what are we doing with the education? Like you said, a balanced society is good for everybody. With this education, they're going to the society. You look like in the corporate world, we're talking here. The data from the corporate world shows that even including academic institutions, the more diverse the company is, the better that company is performing. So when they even talk about diversity, you simply ask why people should even complain when we talk about diversity, because this data shows that those companies do better. They hire the diversity. So this, at the end of the day, everybody is benefiting from increasing access to higher education, and by doing that, increasing diversity in all aspects of society.
Okay, let's see. We've gone over some things here, talking about the barriers, and how they can be removed, which is another, again, we have to consider more than just the financial barrier, because the retention piece is important. And so students need to, feel, or anyone, students or people in the workplace need to feel comfortable with where they are. So hopefully the program again this fall, and from what I was reading, the president has that in place as well to give the students the support that they need, especially first generation. Some of you were mentioning first generation coming, because it's just, I was first generation, because it's just a different experience when you come first generation, and people who have had, all the support and, maybe a whole slew of educators in their family or whatever, they have so much more in place when they come. So it's really critical for someone to stay and feel comfortable, and thrive, to have those things considered as well.
Thank you guys so much, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
everybody for participating today. I want to thank our facilitators, Linda and Eric. Thank you guys for your time and your skill in preparing for this discussion and leading us tonight. We hope that you gained some ideas that you can use in your day-to-day life to decrease racism within your family, friends, or your workplace. We want to invite you to our next Wrestling with Racism event. The next Wrestling with Racism event will take place on Thursday, April 16th at 6:30 p.m. over Zoom. Thank you guys. Everybody have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.